I left off last time in Homer's Odyssey, and I mentioned that there were a couple of books in the Odysseus' own account of his own voyages that are at the center of the Odyssey, the story that Odysseus tells within the story of the Odyssey about, and are embedded right in the center of the plot. I talked about the difference between a plot and the story. The story is when the chronological order, but the plot is the way in which the poet decides he's going to present the order of events. And the reason he chooses that ordering is to make a certain emphasis. You don't have to begin with the beginning. You can begin right in the middle of things. That's the standard for an epic. You begin right in the middle of things. We found that in criminal dramas, they often, like murder mysteries, they often begin with the start right in the middle of things, and then they backtrack to get to that point. Same epics always do that. It's not uncommon for many artistically rendered works of literature to start the plot in a different point than the chronological beginning of things. And I actually did mention to you as well, and what I found really interesting is that when we see an artist do this, it's clear that the purpose of that is to show design and purpose and ordering. There's an important ordering of events. In the case of Homer, he begins with the invocation of the muse. Remember, one of the goddesses of memory, one of the daughters of the goddess memory, who herself is a goddess. And it begins, though, then with the council of the gods. And so Homer is telling us about the significance of the events that are he's about to recount, that it's begun with the gods being concerned with human affairs. So he's teaching us something about gods, or the gods' ordering of things and their interest in human affairs. They're not just random occurrences, and as they might appear to us in our own lives. I said that that's clear in Homer's account, but note that it is also true in the biblical account, even though those stories do begin chronologically. From the beginning to the end of the Bible, we're given a chronologically precise narrative from the very beginning to the very end, and yet there's the same sense of providential ordering and design in all of the stories. And what that tells us about the Christian view of history is that God is outside space and time, and yet he's using space and time and history in order to fulfill his purposes. And so again, it tells us something about our own lives then, which is that we matter to God because history matters to God, and individuals in the recounting of history matter to God. And we don't need to have that forefronted and structured by an author to make that point, because the whole of Scripture makes that point consistently from the beginning to the end. It's regularly cross-referencing back and forth all the time. It talks about the beginning of things, but it will also, let's say in the gospel accounts, it'll refer back to Genesis. Luke 3 will talk about Jesus leading back to the first people on earth, Adam and Eve. He'll trace his lineage. Matthew's gospel will trace him back to Abraham for a different purpose, because Abraham is the first man who walked by faith. He's the man of faith, as it says in book of Romans. So it's giving a genealogy, a historical account, but for a different purpose. But note that genealogies are themselves giving historically important lineages, history of people coming one after the other for a specific purpose, and the purpose is to show design, reinforcing the already evident design of human history by God. So again, just think about that when you're thinking about historical events, even in our day. That nothing has happened without God's awareness. Not a sparrow falls from the sky, not a hair from our heads without God's awareness, involvement. He didn't just create all things, he is involved in all things to this day. He continues to be involved in creation. That's the Christian view. He doesn't create things and then step back and let the laws of nature take over. That's not the biblical view. The Homeric view is making a similar point, much less much weaker, I think, but still making a point. The gods care about humanity, and they care about justice. And the emphasis of the structuring of the plot reinforces that. And right in the center of the story of the Odyssey is Odysseus telling his own story. Note that the story of Odysseus is more important than just his perspective on it. We're hearing the story about Odysseus written by the epic poet Homer. His own narrative about it, that's what we're going to read about in books 9 to 12. So I talked about the structuring there. And behind all that, as I say, the judgment of Paris told in the Iliad, and the unwise choice of Paris in choosing Aphrodite and her offer, and thus following his desires ahead of his head, followed his passions. This is the very thing that Odysseus is able to resist. He's a character that shows he chooses wisdom as opposed to passion. Those that follow their passions are, and this is a consistent statement throughout the ancient world, those that are going to follow their passions are going to be led astray and be doomed. You don't want to follow your passions. Do not follow your heart alone. You got to use your mind. Exercise your virtue. Be faithful to people. It's not just Christians that will talk about faithfulness. The Romans and Greeks will do, but they'll do it for different reasons. But one of the things we see about Odysseus is that he wants to return home to his wife and family, despite having all earthly pleasure presented before him in the person of that figure Calypso, that beautiful nymph of beautiful body, immortal in life, able to give him eternal or immortal life in return. He turns his back on that because he does not want to follow his passions. So he's an illustration of a man of virtue, but also a man of wisdom. He's choosing wisdom, and he's exemplifying that for Homer's audience. He wants them to be wise people as well. And in general, I think it's pretty well acknowledged by everyone that the Greeks are renowned for wisdom. It's where the word philosophy comes from. Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, the most famous philosophers began in Greece. And the New Testament is written in Greek. And there's that's not insignificant either. But back to the structure. As I say, in the center of the account, the apologoi are Odysseus' accounts of his own Odyssey since Troy fell in year 10 of his voyage, and now he's going to have 10 years back, and many of these years are spent here in the amongst the Ciconians, amongst the Lotus Eaters, with Cyclops, with Aeolus, all of these different voyages or adventures here, he's going to recount. They're right in the center of this, right there. So let's look at some of these episodes. I said I was not going to read them all, and I'm not going to read them all because I don't want to go through, I don't have the time really, even though I'm spending a great deal of this class on the Odyssey, more than any other book. I've given you it doesn't seem like it, but by giving you a couple of weeks, I'm giving you a lot of time to read a book. It's the longest book on the course, and I'm giving you more time than I normally would. You may think, oh my goodness, like it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, and you've given us 2 weeks, and how can you press us so hard? This is actually light. But it's the hardest part on the course in terms of reading volume. And you don't have any assignments right now, so read, and enjoy it. And if you do, I think you will enjoy it. I've never met anyone who didn't like the Odyssey. It's that good. I said I would focus on 2 things. This one, oops, didn't mean to do that. Polyphemus, the Cyclops, the blinding episode, because it's significant, and also the journey to the underworld. I want to look at those, particular focus on those, because those episodes are significant elsewhere, but all of these episodes are significant, actually. But those are the 2 I'm going to focus on. The Cyclops, because the story of the Cyclops, oops, how do I get away from that, is going to lead to the instance of Odysseus' great folly, which costs him so much, and that is that he reveals his name. Let me see if I can find this here. does it give me the chapters? This is Alcinous and so forth. There's 9. And this is the story. Okay. Alcinous, the king, noticed that he's weeping in response to the story of the Trojan heroes. He's not hearing it as a story. He's telling it as a reminder of who he is and who his friends were. And his friends have not returned home. They're all dead. They survived the war. They were his comrades in arms, and they've met terrible ends in some cases, like Agamemnon. And he weeps at this, because men in battle are joined so tightly that they're as close as brothers, and they've met a terrible fate. And so he's weeping at this, and Alcinous notices this, and the king says, tell us who you are. And then Odysseus, the great teller of tales, launched out on his story. Alcinous, majesty shining among your island people, what a fine thing it is to listen to such a bard as we have here. The man sings like a god. The crown of life, I'd say. There's nothing better than when deep joy holds sway throughout the realm, and banqueters up and down the palace sit in ranks, enthralled to hear the bard, and before them the tables heaped with bread and meats, and drawing wine from a mixing bowl, the steward makes his rounds and keeps the wine cups flowing. This, to my mind, is the best that life can offer. The best that life can offer is what Homer himself would give, what the singer, the bard, he's singing in assembly, recounting the stories of legend, not just of legend, but of wisdom, of significant events that draw together and present the meaning of life. A worthy life is being presented to them all the time. Just think about that. How important it is to hear stories of important lives lived well, hearing them regularly in the midst of the chaos of life, when you feel like you're surrounded by meaninglessness and purposelessness, which is so much the experience of our day. It's certainly there in social media. It's just chaos, being twisted and manipulated all the time. Nothing meaningless, nothing meaningful. Here we get that. It grounds them. As I say, it functions in the same way Scripture does in the life of a believer. Sets them on, okay, I'm thinking about the right things here. And he, having heard this, is now going to take the place of someone like Homer. Not that he's going to play the lyre, but he's going to tell his story. But now you've set on probing the bitter pains I've borne, so I'm to weep and grieve, it seems, still more. Well then, what shall I go through first? What pains? The gods have given me my share. Now let me begin by telling you my name, so that you may know it well, and I, in times to come, if I escape, the fatal day will be your host, your sworn friend, though my home is far from here. I am Odysseus, son of Laertes, known to the world for every kind of craft. He's known for craftiness, every kind of art. The word here in Greek is techne, from which we get technology. He's not just naturally gifted. He's not like a superhero, gifted with strength. He's known for techne. He's cultivated his intellect, cultivated his hands to be able to do things well. Now, just 2 steps back. Cultivation or art is the perfection of human nature. We educate children because it's a God-given mandate to exercise dominion over the earth. We don't just let things grow naturally, wildly, let them do whatever they want. We cultivate them so they become better. That includes people, because they're not naturally good, especially after the fall. You have to cultivate them. You chop off I'm using metaphorical here, but you chop off the branches you cut out the weeds, you put them in a good place, you give them a lot of sunlight, you give them good nutrition, and you remove the evil, insignificant, or bad influences from a child. And you cultivate them, you give them good food to grow up with. And Odysseus has the capacity for every kind of craft, because he is a highly educated man, highly cultivated. He represents the very thing that Homer's paideia is trying to create in the children who are listening to this. We want you to be well-educated people. So when you study this in first year university, it's a good call to you. This is what you want to do. God's given you gifts, abilities. You need to cultivate them. It's the gift of God. Well, fan it into flame. That means you got to do something with it. You have to work. Also, first commandment in Scripture, be fruitful and multiply, fill and subdue the earth. And what does that mean? It means gardening. You got to be a good gardener. And the garden is you. You're the garden, in the garden. You got to cultivate your life. Cut out the weeds. Keep out problematic things. Focus on things that are going to allow you to flourish. Odysseus is the example of it. He is the personification of wisdom, even as Athena is the goddess of wisdom. And they see themselves as almost like a pair, or Homer presents them that way. So he's known to the world for every kind of craft. My fame has reached the skies. Sunny Ithaca, that's actually literally true, because the gods, as we saw at the beginning of the epic, are talking about him. Sunny Ithaca is my home. Okay, so he talks about this and talks about his homeland and so forth, and then starts his account. And his account is that he goes to the Cyclones, as I said to you earlier. Right there at the beginning. Among other Cyclones, calling out for help and so forth. And then he goes on to the lotus eaters, where the temptation is for them to forget the pain and suffering of the war. They've been at war for 10 years. They've been away from their families for 10 years. They've suffered wounds. They've suffered traumas. They have post-traumatic stresses. They might be warriors, but they're not, immune to psychological distress. And they try to deal with their distress by drugs. Dulls the pain. Problem is that the initial promise of the drug is never as good the second time or the third or the fourth, and then they're addicted and they can't get out of the addiction. And some of them it's like the reason they like is they forget the pain. And that's like being dead. Well, they were dead to their families while they were away, and now they're never going to return. Even if they come back, they're drug addicts. It's a huge temptation after trauma. To this day, the reason people take drugs is the same in every generation, because there's a lot of pain, and it appears to dull the pain, except it doesn't. It creates worse pain. You lose yourself. You can't forget. You have to remember. The Odyssey is about remembering. Remember? It's from the goddess of memory. It's important that you remember. Same thing taught in Deuteronomy 6. You're going to teach the children and teach them to remember what I did in the land of Egypt. Important that you remember. Importance of history, important of certain events in history, which are not only true for the nation of Israel, but for us as well. This is the God of the Exodus. That means that he's a savior. Don't forget that. But they are going to forget it. They want to forget it precisely because the pain's so great. So they never come back, even when they come back. You've seen the Vietnam movies where people return from trauma, and yet they're drugged out. They've never come back from the war. The war has followed them. So it's a serious difficulty. It's not a small one. But let's look at Polyphemus the Cyclops. This is the one I want to look at here because it's significant for Odysseus himself. He goes on, Cythera, and we sail where the Cyclops are found, not too far out, and they go along, and we hear a few things about the Cyclops. First of all, Cyclops lack techne. They live in nature. They're very strong, physically strong. They don't cultivate. They don't have any flocks. They don't plow the earth. They just let things happen to them. They're a little bit like the environmentalist movement this day. Well, let things come to us, and we're not going to, it's as if by not involving themselves, not exerting themselves in life, that they're doing what's right. And they're not portrayed this way by Homer at all. Homer portrays them as uncivilized entirely. This is what he's depicting. They don't have flocks, they don't have crops, they have no ships. You say, so what? That means that they have no contact with other people. They're not interested in life. They're not interested in others. They don't practice hospitality. All these things are contradictions of a good human being according to Homer and his world. They got no ships, nor shipwrights, people that can make the ships. They don't have pretty much anything. They have no artisans. They have no culture. They live in nature with no culture. The environmentalist movement is so strong in our day that people will actually think that they're being closer to God by being closer to nature and not thinking that culture is antithetical to God's purposes for them. Even though it says the very first commandment in Scripture is be fruitful and multiply and fill and subdue the earth. Before the fall. It's a good thing. It's a deliberate echo. When I come to the Genesis text, comparing it to one of the Greek texts, I'm going to show you that they are echoing what God has just done in the account in Genesis up to that point. God subdues and then fills. Theirs is like a mirror image. They are supposed to fill and then subdue. It's A, B, 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 A. A, B, B, A. God, humanity, in response. You're not following God's command for you if you don't have children. Purposefully. You're not benefiting anyone. You're not obeying God. But he talked about this. Such artisan would have made this island too a decent place to live, no mean spot, because you could have had any crop you want. But because they have refused to do so, this is a terrible place they're in, a terrible place. And the Cyclops has one eye. With one eye, you get no perspective. It's a symbolic thing. Maybe they only have one big eye. But it's like cover up one eye, you lose all sense of depth perception. You can't see things in different dimensions. So you do, it's not that you're totally blind, but your vision is skewed. And their vision is skewed. They see things the wrong way. And they don't care about the gods. And they don't care about people as a result. There's a harbor there. They go in and they land. And as they go out, 12 vessels in my command, to which 9 goats were shared out, and mine alone took 10. They go on there, and they go there to land, and they go there to get some stuff. And then the question is, what sort of people are there? Are they violent, savage, lawless, or friendly to strangers, God-fearing men? He's just encountered the Cicones and the Lotus Eaters, and those were not good places. Now he's here, and he's wondering, well, this is the worst of all of them. He doesn't know that yet. Down he goes, and he tells his crew to wait behind some of them and take the ship and get it out of the view of people here, because we just saw that people will try to destroy our ships. So hide the ship. Just to be careful. So down he goes, and he takes with him a skin of wine. Now he got this wine from Maron in the Cicones that was given to him because he treated them well. Now this wine is really strong, fermented wine, extra strength. And his good treatment there gives him a reward, which is going to be very effective here in subduing Polyphemus the Cyclops. They didn't know it at the time, but the gods have managed to give them this. So they bring the wine along. Why? Because they gave to a priest of Apollo. We rescued him because we were reverent towards the gods. So the reward for this is the wine that Polyphemus is about to drink, and it will intoxicate him, and they'll be able to do things with him anyway. So down they go, and that he takes, and off they go. And as they go, they build a fire. They go inside of a cave, and they build a fire, and they see that there are cheeses there. The cheeses have come from the goats that happen to have fallen under the care of Polyphemus. offer some to the gods, ate the bulk ourselves, settled down, waiting whoever is there, awaiting his return, because it's somebody. And they don't want to eat his food and not say anything. So they wait around in the cave. He comes back. He flung his logs down in the cave, a jolting crash. We scuttled in panic into the deep, because it's a big crash. He's got a lot of logs. Yes, sir.
Was it wrong with him
to eat the food?
Yeah. Sacrifice some of his goats?
Well, they sacrificed the cheese. Yeah. I don't even know what that means. Throw it on the fire or something. You know. Sacrifice the cheese. Yes. Yeah, they said that they don't have any of these things, but he has these things. How did he get these things? Well, I guess somebody gave them to him, or he took them from somebody. I have no idea. It just happened. Possibly. The Cyclops in general are like this, but he seems to have it. Yeah, it does seem to contradict what's just been said. I agree. Why is Cyclops a herdsman when we've just heard that they're not herding anything? And he happens to have these. Anyway, so he comes here, he brings his flock inside, and then he takes a slab and covers the cave entrance. So it's a big rolling stone, just like is portrayed in the accounts of Jesus' death. They roll a huge stone across the mouth, so huge that only he can move it. So here's their problem. They can't get out. Even if they want to. And 22 wagons could not budge that boulder off the ground. So it's an enormous stone. Nobody's moving it. Then he squats to milk the sheep, and only then does he address them. He knows they're there. But only after he's had a drink and sat there, and then, strangers, he thundered out, now who are you? Where did you sail from? Over the running sea lanes, out on a trading spree or roving the waves like pirates, sea wolves raiding at will, who risk their lives to plunder other men? The hearts inside us shook, terrified by his rumbling voice and monstrous bulk. Nevertheless, I found the nerve to answer firmly, men of Achaia we are, and bound now from Troy. He's assuming that they will know about the Battle of Troy. Driven far off by the warring winds, and so it must please King Zeus's plotting heart that we've come to you. We're glad to say that we're men of Atrides, Agamemnon, whose fame is the proudest thing on earth these days. So great a city he sacked, such multitudes he killed. But since we've chanced on you, we're at your knees, the sort that hosts give strangers. That's the custom. He sees him and he thinks, this man does not seem to know customs. Let me teach you some manners here. We're expecting to be treated well. Respect the gods, my friend. We're suppliants at your mercy. Zeus of the strangers guards all guests and suppliants. Strangers are sacred. Zeus will avenge their rights. Stranger, he rumbled back with his brutal heart, you must be a fool, stranger, or come from nowhere, telling me to fear the gods or avoid their wrath. We Cyclops never blink at Zeus and Zeus's shield of storm and thunder or any other blessed god. We've got more force by far. I'd never spare you in fear of Zeus's hatred. You or your companions here, unless I had the urge. But tell me, where did you moor your sturdy ship when you arrived? Up the coast or close in, I'd like to know. So he laid his trap, but he never caught me. No, wise to the world I shot back in my crafty way. My ship? And then he lies. But the lie is a very unfortunate one. Poseidon, god of the earthquake, smashed my ship. Not true. Poseidon's going to do this later, but as at this point, it's just a flat lie. He chose one of the gods. Poseidon smashed my ship. He drove it against the rock at your island's far cape, dashed it against the cliff, and I and the men you see escaped a sudden death. And the response of him then is to grab them and eat them. Takes them, puts them in his mouth, bites them, tears them apart, whatever. because Poseidon's his father. Oh, if Poseidon's angry at you and he did this, then I know where I stand in relation to you. So the lie leads him actually into the unfortunate outcome here. He grabs him, wraps them on the ground and knocked them dead like pups. He grabs them by the feet and smacks their heads on the ground like it's just gruesome. Oh yeah. And then eats them. Ripping from limb to limb his meal, he bowled them down like a mountain lion, left no scrap. Devoured entrails, flesh and bones, marrow and all. We flung our hands to Zeus. We wept and cried aloud, looking on his grisly work. We wept and cried, paralyzed, appalled. But once the Cyclops had stuffed his enormous gut with human flesh, washing it down with raw milk, he slept in his cave, stretched out along his flocks. Now Odysseus wants to run him through with the sword, but then he thinks, if I do that, I will never get out. This is his problem. If they kill him inside the cave, they will never escape because the stone is too big. They could all attack him at once. He knows this, and so he's happy just to lie down and sleep right there. Terrible situation. How do they get out? At a stroke, we'd finish off ourselves as well. We could never get that out. So they lie in there and they wait, and then he snatches 2 more men. They're all going to be food and they're all going to die. And they can't get out. So there's the dilemma. What do they do? Would Athena give me glory? How would I pay him back? Here was the plan that I struck. What do? They wait till he gets out. They strap themselves underneath the sheep. They're ready to do this. And then they're going to blind him. But they're going to I don't know how you do this exactly, but they're going to strap themselves underneath the bottom of the sheep. It must be darn big sheep. Like large sheep, very large sheep. So that when the blinded Cyclops feels him, he feels the sheep and he lets the sheep pass. So no man's going to get by them, but the sheep get out because the sheep have to be pastured, right? So, and what they do is they give him wine then. And the wine makes him totally drunk. And then while he's drunk, they take a large pole, which they sharpen and stick in the fire so that its point is red hot and sharp. And then with a bunch of men, they run at the Cyclops' eye and stick it right in the eyeball. And it pops and it sizzles and he screams. And I can tell you the demands more and more and more, and he declares, and he asks him what his name is, Odysseus. This is the famous part of it. You ask me my name is nobody. Nobody, that's my name, nobody. So my mother and father call me all my friends. But he boomed back he says, if you tell me, if you give me this, I will give you a gift. What's the gift? I'll eat you last. That's my gift to you. And he thinks that he's tricked Odysseus. Tricked the trickster. The trickster says that his name is nobody. Polyphemus thinks that he's going to catch him in the trick. Yeah, I'll do what I said I would do. I'll give you a reward. Your reward is I will eat you last. Aha. So now we have 2 tricksters facing off. My gift to you is I'll eat you last. And with that, he sprawls over drunk, and then they stick this thing in his broiling eyeball, crackling as a blacksmith plunges a glowing axe or adze in a ice cold bath, and the metal screeches steam, and its temper hardens. That's the iron strength. So the eye of the Cyclops sizzled round that stake. And the blood's coming out, and he comes screaming. What does he do? He rolls the stone away, and he runs out into the open and screams out to the other Cyclops. Because remember, they live as solitaries. They don't live with other Cyclops. There's not Mrs. Cyclops. There's no little kid Cyclopses. I don't know where the Cyclops come from, but never mind. And he goes out and cries. And hearing his cries, all the Cyclops neighbors come by, and they come and say, what, Polyphemus, what in the world's the trouble? Roaring out in the God-sent night to rob us of our sleep. Surely no one's rustling your flocks against your will. Surely no one's trying to kill you now by fraud or force. Nobody, friends, Polyphemus bellowed back from his cave. Nobody's killing me now by fraud and not by force. If you're alone, his friends boomed back at once, and nobody's trying to overpower you now, well, look, it must be a plague sent here by mighty Zeus, and there's no escape from that. You better pray to your father, Lord Poseidon, and then they go back. So the Poseidons are not the other whatchamacallit, the other Cyclops are not going to help him because nobody's hurting him. He means to designate Odysseus, of course, but they conclude naturally from the word that nobody, so they just go back their own way. And now he's still stuck on his own. So Odysseus outwits Polyphemus in this episode. And then they do the holding to the bottom of the sheep trick, and then they get out. They lash with 2 rams either side, so I guess it's 2 rams, but still I find it somewhat improbable. But they hang there and they get out there, even though he's blind, they get by them. And as they get out, I called back to the Cyclops stinging taunts. So, Cyclops, no weak coward it was whose crew you bent to devour there in your vaulted cave, you with your brute force. Odysseus overcomes him with techne. You've got brute strength. I have my mind, my wits, my craft, my techne. Your filthy crimes come down on your head, you shameless cannibal, daring to eat your guests in your own house. So Zeus and the other gods have paid you back. That made the rage of the monster boil over, and he takes off the peak of a crag and he throws it so hard it lands in front of the prow of the ship and almost sinks the ship because he throws it at the voice. And then as they get far enough away that they can't hit him, Odysseus says, out of rage, he contradicts what he was once told not to do. By Telemus, a prophet, master at reading signs, who grew old in the trade among his fellow Cyclops, all this he warned me would come to pass someday, that I'd be blinded here at the hands of one Odysseus. Oh, he gives him his name. Where did he give his name? Yeah, there it is. Because he's, okay, so Polyphemus says that he's been blinded, and he'd been told he was going to be blinded by another Cyclops by a man named Odysseus. And Odysseus, having heard that, confirms that that's what's just happened. And he bellows out to Lord Poseidon, thrusting his arms to the starry skies. He prayed, hear me, Poseidon, god of the sea blue mane who rocks the earth. If I really am your son and you claim to be my father, grant that Odysseus, raider of cities, Laertes' son who makes his home in Ithaca, never reaches home, because Odysseus has just told him his name. He says, oh yeah, I'm Odysseus, sacker of cities, son of Laertes from Ithaca. That's who has blinded you. You wanted to know my name? Now you know my name. You can't reach me. You can't harm me. He reveals his identity to him. This is his moment of folly that costs his companions dearly. It has Poseidon's enmity against him that keeps him away from his home for 10 years. Lesson learned is do not give away your precious identity to strangers. Guard yourself. Protect yourself. Poseidon hears the prayer and is furious, and he is going to keep Odysseus from getting home. So the instance of Polyphemus the Cyclops here. I'm going to skip over the Laestrygonians, giants who eat people. If you read C.S. Lewis's The Silver Chair, and they go down the realm of the giants, he's just ripping off this account in the Odyssey. If you read Lewis, Tolkien, any of the great modern writers, you will see that they are just citing and using stories that they've read in ancient or medieval literature and reintroducing them to people that haven't read the stories. They're not So they're being inventive, yes, but actually just repurposing old stories. Even J.K. Rowling does this in Harry Potter. She's taking stories from ancient literature and remake. So the Cerberus, the hellhound with 3 heads, that's just taken from Homer's Underworld. There's all sorts of things like that. Purpose of me telling you that is the stories that we read are going to be read by people who like to read and like to write. So we'll go to the Laestrygonians. Circe, I will skip over this, but Circe is a sorceress who turns men into swine. She gives them drink and they become swinish. Again, it's a lot like earlier where the men lose their identity through drugs. Circe turns them literally to swine, however, makes them brutish and not want to go back to life. But Odysseus is protected from her by holy moly. It's a plant. The moly, it's the holy moly. It's holy. She recognizes it. She's afraid of him. And Circe tells him how to get back. How is he going to get back? Home. Circe will tell him, a witch, you have to go down to the underworld. That's how you're going to get back, Odysseus. You have to go down to the underworld. Now, the thing that's shocking about this is in the people that are in the underworld are the dead. You don't go down to the underworld and come back up. There are people who have been brought down to the underworld who are still living, but nobody comes back up, except a few heroes. So this is a part of one of the epic conventions we're going to see. That's repeatedly told, and is a characteristic of the Greco-Roman epic, is the hero goes down to the underworld and comes back up. So in that sense, you could see the gospel accounts as presenting Jesus as a sort of an epic hero in that sense. The difference being that he was first killed and went down and then came back up. So it's significant, and that's not an insignificant difference. Did you have a comment or a question? Oh, when he sleeps with the god, that I'm not exactly sure. It seems like it. Yeah. It's like, ooh, what? Yuck, ick. And why would you do this? And she demands it, and it's like, you have to do it. So again, it seems like something that he doesn't want to do, but he's willing to do it because he's got it. Like, there's a only way of getting back is to do this. And again, if you read it through the lenses of modern life, they'll say, yeah, oh, come on, right? But the purpose of this is different. Yeah, but I thought the same thing about that passage. And why does Odysseus sleep with Circe here? She demands it, is the answer. And why she demands it, I have absolutely no idea why she demands it. Just seems to be a requirement for him to pass. But he has to have the holy moly, and he has to, when in the midst of their coitus, he has to pull the sword out and threaten her life, because otherwise she's going to renege on her deal and she's going to turn him into swine again. So he's warned by Hermes to do this. So there's something weird going on there, though. Exactly. Then she'll say this, and when she does that, you do that. But when you do that, she's going to try and do this. And at that point, you bring out your sword and you threaten her life. And at that point, she'll say, no, don't kill me. And then she will do what you want her to do, and she'll reveal how you get home. So he's the messenger of the gods in some sort of weird, and this is the thing that's rather dark. It seems like the secrets of life are found in the underworld. Not in the gods, in the underworld. So they go down into the underworld and they come out of it. They swear by In the ancient world, they swear by the gods, but they also swear by what's under the earth. Scripture, it says not to do such things. First of all, no sorcery. Don't consult mediums, and don't swear by any power on above, on earth, and under the earth. You can let your yes be yes and your no be no. They are called shades, technically. Yeah. So one of my first memories of teaching this course at Tyndale was a young woman who was in a Pentecostal church. She was really freaked out by this passage, this bit. And she said, I don't want to read it. Is there any way I can pass this course and not read this text? And I said, why? She said, because it's dark. And I said, yeah, you're right. It is dark. I said, do you believe that these gods, demons are real in the sense that they will have power over you? No, I don't. And I said, well, I don't either. And I don't think that any God that you don't believe in has power over you just simply by reading about it. If you don't place your faith and trust in this in any way, I don't think it's of any spiritual danger to you. But it's illustrating something about their world, and they do believe in it. And to this day, people swear by dark powers and consult them and so forth. And those that do that, I think, are subject to serious spiritual harm. But I trust that's not what somebody in this class is going to do. We're introducing the Greco-Roman world and their beliefs in this, but not our own. Remember, this is the story going back and forth that's always being brought to his attention, the God's cautionary tale. Now the underworld. So let me get to the underworld. This underworld, it's roughly the same. So we're looking at Homer's Odyssey here. We'll find in a couple of weeks when we look at the Aeneid that we get the underworld as well. And he comes at it just from a different point, but it's roughly the same outline here. Odysseus comes here by boat, lands in the grove of Persephone, and then makes his way this way to Tiresias and Chiron, who carries him across the Dead March, the river Styx, and meets Cerberus the hellhound and goes on and on through here. Aeneas will come at it from this angle. So the Roman, Trojan hero will come here, and then he will go to the same point, but they come at it from a different angle. But still, the two of them end up here, meeting Chiron and so forth. So we're going to go here into the underworld, and there are unburied souls here gathered on the banks that can't get across. They can't get across because they haven't been buried. He meets one of his companions there who got there ahead of him. He says, how on earth did you get here? Easy. I fell overboard and died. And at that point, right here, instantly. You've had to take the voyage to get here. I died, simply. So I get right to the bank to get into the underworld. And it seems like his soul is being tortured. He really wants to get here. There's something in him that wants to get into the realm of the dead, and he can't do that as long as he lies unburied. So he said, whatever you do, make sure that you bury me before you carry on back to Ithaca, as an act of piety to your fellow warrior. Let me do that. And so Odysseus is going to backtrack and bury him before he does go on. But on he goes, and he will come to Chiron and Cerberus, and there will be all sorts of things. So I'm just going to talk about this, and I'll go to the text. He'll go past Cerberus, the hellhound, asphodel fields, through the Vale of Mourning, and then he will find that there's a plain of judgment, and there's a place called Tartarus where the dead are punished. Where the bad guys go in the underworld. Whereas there's a place of judgment here where you say you come along here and then you get sent back here, or you get sent that way. And Minos is the judge of that. He's a demonic character, wraps his tail around you in judgment and so forth. And you either go there or you go this way. And if you go this way, you go past the palace of Hades to the Elysian fields, the Champs-Élysées, represented in Paris to this day now, right? The Champs-Élysées, the Elysian fields. They're just using the terminology from the pagan epics. And he will meet all sorts of characters down there. But among them is his Well, that's his father Anchises. Okay, well, that's not his father. That's Aeneas's father Anchises. And most of this depiction is from book 6 of the Aeneid. And I'll skip over that. I'll skip over 10. I want to get to 11. Eurylochus. Yeah, it's making me sick. There's a problem with no line numbers on this text. This is going to kill me. There. Okay. So they come there in book 6 to see Circe. I don't think I can make this a full screen. I don't know how I make it a full screen. I'm not going to bother. Oh, there we go. And Circe speaks and tells them to go down, and at the spot, go down and down and down. And first they come across the ghost of Elpenor. Remember his dead companion? Didn't know he was dead, sees him there. Elpenor tells him to how he got there. You know, how'd you get here? You got here faster than my ship. How is that possible? Well, I died. So make sure you bury me before you proceed on. Down they go, and as they go down, they meet the figure of Tiresias. Now, Tiresias, I'm just going to say briefly here, Tiresias is a figure, a prophetic figure, famous figure, androgynous figure who represents a shamanistic figure as well. Represents a sort of the pagan ideal for the priest. He knows male identity, he knows female identity. I can give you the story about that, although I never get it entirely right because I'm actually not that interested and don't want to get myself into trouble here. But basically, Tiresias was again called upon, just like Paris at the judgment of Paris with the 3 goddesses. There, 2 goddesses are fighting, I can't remember who it was, arguing who enjoys the sex act more, men or women, or male or female. Tiresias, who is it? They just come upon him. You got to tell us. Tiresias, I'm not sure I really want to do this. Tell us. Okay, well, how am I going to find that out? Well, they turn the man Tiresias into a woman. He experiences a sex act as a man, as a woman. And the reward for that, because I think he says it's the woman, is that the god, I believe it's Apollo, gifts him with prophetic insight. So he's a figure of wisdom. But in punishment for saying this, the goddess blinds him. So he's a blind prophet. We're going to meet him when we come to Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. So there's sometimes stories behind the stories. And Tiresias, here being in the underworld, a figure of insight who knows the ways of the underworld and so forth, is a figure we're about to meet again. I just mentioned him here because he's the famous Theban prophet. This is a story that exists before Homer even. An ancient story. And he speaks to him, and he knows who he is at once. Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, master of exploits, man of pain. What now? What brings you here, forsaking the light of day to see this joyless kingdom of the dead? Stand back from the trench, put up your sharp sword so I can drink the blood and tell you all the truth. And this is a weird thing, and another rather dark aspect of the underworld is that the figures, in order to speak, have to be given a drink of blood. They're bloodless at this point. They're shades. They look like themselves, but they can't reason. They can't speak. The blood allows them to speak. Then he does, and he lets them go. And Odysseus replies to Tiresias what you're supposed to do. Oh, I have to tell him. I have to let Tiresias speak here. A sweet, smooth journey home, renowned Odysseus, that's what you seek. But a god will make it hard for you. I know. You will never escape the one who shakes the earth. Poseidon. Quaking with anger at you still enraged because you blind the Cyclops' dear son. Even so, you and your crew may still reach home. To curb their wild desire and curb your own, what's more, from the day your good trim vessel first puts in at Thrinacia island flees the cruel blue sea. There you will find them grazing. Herds and fat flocks, the cattle of Helios. This is the last, this is in book 12. The sun god, you're right on the verge of getting back to your own people. You will find when you're starving, there's the cattle of the sun god right in front of you. Don't eat them, whatever you do. Do not eat the cattle of Helios. Leave the beasts unharmed, your mind set on home. And you note that the mind has to overrule the appetites. Consistent message. Your mind always overrules your passions, your appetites. Always. It's like being on a big ocean with water all around you and perishing from thirst. What happens if you drink the ocean water? Immediate death. Because it sucks all the water out of you. You have no water in your body anyway. You drink the water and it instant death. Temptation's there. That's the thing. And you all may reach Ithaca bent with hardship, true, but harm them in any way, and I can see it now, your ship destroyed, your men destroyed as well. And even if you escape, you'll come home late and come a broken man, all shipmates lost, alone in a stranger's ship. And you will find a world of pain at home, crude, arrogant men devouring all your goods, courting your noble wife, offering gifts to win her. No doubt you will pay them back in blood when you come home. But once you've killed those suitors in your halls, well, this is a prediction of, he's given away the whole plot. By stealth or an open fight with slashing bronze, go forth once more, you must. Carry your well-planed oar until you come to a race of people who know nothing of the sea, whose food is never seasoned with salt, strangers all their ships with their crimson plows and long slim oars, wings that make ships fly, and here is your sign, unmistakable, clear, so clear you cannot miss it. When another traveler falls in with you and calls that weight across her shoulder, a fan to winnow grain, then plant your bladed, balanced oar in the earth and sacrifice fine beasts to the Lord God of the sea, Poseidon, a ram, a bull, and a ramping wild boar. Then journey home and render nobler offerings up to the deathless gods who rule the vaulting skies, to all the gods in order. And at last your own death will steal upon you, a gentle, painless death far from the sea. So he'll go to a place where there's no culture again and offer a gift up Poseidon. Where's that place? Maybe it's back where Poseidon was. Don't even know. But it's a people who have none of those things. Just like at that point, offer a sacrifice, stick your oar in the ground, meaning you're not going to travel anymore. You're not going to hold on or believe in your techne as superiority to the ways of Poseidon. At that point, the gods will forgive you and it's all done. And you will voyage no more. Peace will be between you at that point. And Tiresias tells him this and then wants to know about the fate. Tell me one more thing. I see the gift of my long-lost mother here before me. She can't look at me in the eyes or speak a word. How can I make her know who I am? One rule there is, if any one of the ghosts you let approach, the blood will speak the truth to you. Anyone you refuse will turn and fade away. So he calls his mother, gives her some blood, and she speaks to him. Likewise, Agamemnon. Likewise, this is the passage I definitely want to look at. Achilles. Where is Achilles here? I hate that I have no line numbers. It's about line 500. Agamemnon. Agamemnon's going to warn him again about his wife. Tell him the story he's already heard many times. Whatever you do, don't trust women. This is what... It won't be your wife because your wife's virtuous, unlike mine, whatever. But women aren't to be trusted. Da, da, da. Then he goes on. Old bitter Agamemnon. And then he comes to Achilles. There he is. Remember, the story of Achilles is that he doesn't know that Achilles is dead, first of all. He encounters him here. He's surprised. Achilles was not killed in the Trojan War. Achilles was killed after the Trojan War, shot through the heel by an arrow, right in the Achilles heel. There then dies because he can't run away, he can't fight, killed. But this is to fulfill a prophecy, which Achilles already agreed to do. If you go to the Trojan War, you will be accounted the greatest of all the Greeks. However, you will die an early death. But if you don't go, you will live a long, happy, healthy life and have no fame. What's your choice? Achilles chooses fame. The Greeks would understand Achilles' choice. They will honor his choice. He lives a noble life, not just a long life, a fat life, a virtuous life, an honorable life. Odysseus. So the interaction between Odysseus and Achilles, you expect certain things here. Odysseus is going to praise Achilles for what a worthy man he is. Achilles, son of Peleus, greatest of the Achaeans. I had to consult Tiresias, driven here by hopes he could help me journey home to rocky Ithaca. Never yet have I neared Achaea, never once. But you, Achilles, there's not a man in the world more blessed than you. There never has been, never will be one. Time was when you were alive, we Argives honored you as a god. And now down here I see you lorded over the dead in all your power. So grieve no more at dying, great Achilles. What? He's praising him for his virtuous life. And what does Achilles say in response? He broke out protesting. No winning words about death to me, shining Odysseus. By God, I'd rather be a slave on earth for another man. Some dirt poor tenant farmer who scrapes to keep alive, then rule down here over all the breathless dead. Shocker. Absolute shocking. The whole of the Greek life is to gain fame and immortality, to do virtuous deeds. He does these deeds. He's the chief representative of the virtuous, admirable life. And he said, I'd rather have lived a long life as a slave than come down here. This is such a terrible place. Just think about the portrait of death and the afterlife that Homer depicts. It's a very complex one, and it reflects the Greek wisdom of the day. You're better off living a virtuous life than just an ordinary, long life lacking in all virtue and honor. But the problem there is that the afterlife is a miserable place, however much you're honored. You don't want to come down here. Extreme conflict and it is a conflict. It's not a resolved conflict. Think about the message of the Christian faith that the God of life, the creator God, took on death to bring you from the realm of the dead to the kingdom of heaven, to eternal life. Fame versus eternal life by faith, and it's a direct appeal to the terrible state that the Greco-Roman world understands that comes in life after death. It offers a better vision, a more appealing one. But even Achilles can't represent it well in the mouth through the pen of Homer. Achilles cannot commend the Greek view of a noble life. So on he goes. He finally, and I'm going to skip over this, and I think I can leave it there. Minos is there, judging all the dead, some on their feet, some seated, all clustering around the king of justice. And he reaches the house of death. He sees Orion. He says, Titus. These are the earth gods, the Titans. They're being punished in the underworld. Remember, these are gods that are being punished. These are the opponents to the Olympian gods, the earth gods as opposed to the sky gods. They're being punished here in the underworld as well, as great as they are. And they're punished eternally. You'll see all sorts of punishments here. Tantalus stood erect in a pool as the water lapped his chin. Parched, he burned to drink, but he could not reach the surface. Every time he tries to take a sip, the water goes away from him. It's eternally thirsty, but the water is right in front of him. Sisyphus will try and roll a boulder up a hill, and just as he's about to reach the top, it rolls back down upon him, and he just keeps doing that eternally. Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods, has his liver eaten out by a vulture. The most torturous act imaginable, having your liver eaten out, and it regenerates. And then it happens over and over and over. So he's in eternal torment. This is what happens to the Titans, who are on the side of humanity, by the way. Humanity's in between the Titans and Olympian gods. Sisyphus, that I mentioned already, and others. Heracles. All of these. And you've heard of some of these gods before. But he goes out, and then we get the cattle of the sun and all that sort of stuff. So let me go back to this account. And the encounter with Tiresias that I've already talked about. Sirens who praise the Trojans and tell them their past glories, and they love the song. It's so good that they don't want to move on. They just want to sit there in an eternal static state. They can't move on in life. They just want to hear their own stories. Scylla and Charybdis, between a rock and a hard place. Famous. Got to choose the lesser of two evils. Finally, let me come to Athena, chapter 14. It's actually chapter 13, I believe. I was going to get to this, and I am fast running out of time. So this is 12. Oop, that's 13. Because I see Telemachus' name. Oh, it's 15. Oh, I did a big skip. Swineherd, that's good. 14. What's the encounter with Athena? Athena, I'm pretty sure it's in 13. Is that not right? Does anyone remember? It is in 13, right? Athena, I'll just go to 13. Because I did want to focus on that. There she is. He lands, so he's brought at the end of his story, the story of his stories, the Phaeacians say, okay, great. You're Odysseus. This is wonderful. We need to help you get home. The Olympian gods want you to get home. We want justice to be done. We're going to take you there. They take him there. They drop him there. They drop him in Achaea, right in his own homeland. But they say, make sure that you're careful about what you do and what you say. Don't tell anyone who you are. Do not reveal your identity. He's already learned his lesson on this. Remain in control of your wits. Subdue your passions. Control your appetites. Whatever happens, don't reveal who you are until the time has come. You have to be wise. You have to restrain yourself. It says in Proverbs, if a man can control his tongue, he can rule a city. It says in James the same sort of thing. Guard your tongues. If you can control your mouths and you control yourself, you can rule over others. First, you have to rule over yourself. You will never rule over anyone else if you can't govern yourself. Odysseus is the model of wisdom. He governs himself first. This is wisdom. Even in the midst of suffering and apparent injustice, guard your tongue. Perennial wisdom literature. Teaching of wisdom literature. And when he gets there, he meets a character who asks him who he is and tell him a story, and then he lies. Lies to Athena, as it turned out. He doesn't know it's Athena. Tells her a bold-faced lie. And she says, in response to this, as a story ended, goddess Athena, gray eyes gleaming, broke into a smile and stroked him with her hand, and now she appeared a woman, beautiful, tall, and skilled at weaving lovely things. Note that she has techne, just like Penelope. Any man, any god who met you would have to be some champion lying cheat to get past you. For all round craft and guile, you terrible man, foxy and genius, never tired of twists and tricks. So not even here on native soil would you give up these wily tales that warm the cockles of your heart. Come, enough of this now. We're both old hands at the arts of intrigue. Here among mortal men, you're by far the best at tactics, spinning yarns, and I am famous among the gods for wisdom, cunning wiles too. Ah, but you never recognized me, did you? Pallas Athena, daughter of Zeus, who always stands beside you, shields you in every exploit. Thanks to me, the Phaeacians all embraced you warmly. And now I am here once more to weave a scheme with you and to hide the treasure trove Phaeacia's nobles lavished on you then. I willed it, planned it so. So wisdom has accompanied him. All along, wisdom personified. You're not on your own. If you read the book of Proverbs, it's talking about the same sort of thing. It's like you have a companion in life. Are you going to go with wisdom or are you going to go with folly? Treat her like she's with you and you're in it together. And you have to suffer. You're going to, the trials you suffer in your palace, endure them all. You must. You have no choice. And to no one, no man, no woman, not a soul reveal that you are the wanderer home at last. No, in silence you must bear a world of pain. Subject yourself to the cruel abuse of man. Ah, God is the cool tactician countered. You're so hard for a mortal man to know on sight. However shrewd he is, the shapes you take are endless. But I do know this. You were kind to me in the war years, so long as we men of Achaia soldiered on at Troy. But once we'd sacked King Priam's craggy city border ship and a god dispersed the fleet, from then on, daughter of Zeus, I never saw you. She abandoned him, is his accusation. He's been God-forsaken. That's what Odysseus. So the wise Odysseus, for all of his wisdom, perceives that he's been abandoned by the goddess that he's always revered. And she reveals that's not so. I wandered on as this. And she says, you're mocking me, I know it, by telling me tales to make me lose my way. Tell me the truth now. Have I really reached the land I love? He doesn't believe her when she says that it's Athena. Now, always the same, your wary turn of mind, Athena exclaimed, her glances flashing warmly. She's happy that he doesn't trust her. Perfect. That's exactly what I want you to be like. That's why I can't forsake you in your troubles. You are so winning, so worldly wise, so self-possessed. Anyone else coming back from wandering land and long and hard would have hurried home at once, delighted to see his wife and children. No, not you. And it's not your pleasure to probe for news of them. You must put your wife to the proof always. But she awaits in your halls as always, her life and endless hardship. Note that everybody in Odysseus' family suffers hardship. Every last one of them. And they all triumph in the midst of the hardship because they are devoted to wisdom. Even though they perceive that wisdom has left them, has not rewarded them, they still stick to it. Again, lesson to the Greek audience. God might appear to have forsaken you. God never forsakes you. Christians have an even stronger sense of this because God is all-seeing. He determines the past, the future, the present. God does not change. He doesn't lie. If he's made you his, he will keep you forever. But she says, I've always been with you. And so at that, she then disguises him. She's going to help him. She disguises him as a beggar. He's going to go back into his own country and his own will not recognize him. Sound familiar? Yeah. So the Lord of glory comes in the person of a little babe born in Bethlehem in a manger in a backwater of the Roman Empire at a time where God had not spoken for 400 years between the book of Malachi and there's a 400-year interval where there's no prophecy. And then God comes and nobody don't even know who he is. Just this carpenter from Nazareth. Same sort of story here. I'm not saying like this is written 800 years before that, but in the words of pagan cultures, there are sometimes foreshadowings of what God reveals in Scripture. You can see this in various forms. I mean, stories are ways in which God, through pagan culture, pagan literature, speaks to us as well. And he goes on to that. I'm going to pick this up next time, but and we'll conclude the book. So read on, and then I'll put the essay questions up as well. But we're going to come back and see that Odysseus comes back, and there's going to be various scenes of revelation. Not that he reveals himself, but he is revealed. People will recognize him despite himself. And there are certain things that are a dog will recognize him. His nurse will recognize him. And then finally, he will reveal himself at the right time to his son and so forth. But there's moments of revelation there that he has to keep it back and suppress it until the time is right. And when the time is right, then it's apocalypse. So Calypso hid him. Now he's hiding himself. But the time will come when the cloak comes off. And now it's me. It's Odysseus. I've come back. You didn't think I was ever going to come back. I'm here. And now you're going to regret everything you've done. And so that's the apocalyptic moment when suddenly the whole lead up to the story comes to fruition. And everyone, you can see the judgment of the gods is being done and righteousness is being fulfilled and all that sort of stuff. So it's very much of a, in the midst of the epic, a genre of apocalyptic in that sense, where the righteousness of the gods is being visited upon men and they will see it. But I'll talk about that next time, okay? I'll pick it up at that point. So please read on.